Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, Potteroonies. As West Side Story is hitting cinemas across the world, and of course, it is directed by probably one of, if not the most famous director of all time, Steven Spielberg. So we'll be picking our favourite Steven Spielberg films. And as always, I'm joined by our local shark. That is Mr. Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
You?
I am splendid. As ever, you might already know, we have a Buy Me a Coffee account. So if you really like what you hear and you want to say a big thank you, follow the show notes below, click the link, and you can buy us a coffee. That would be amazing. So what film did you go with, Boaz, for Steven Spielberg?
I went with Catch Me If You Can.
All right. Why did you go with Catch Me If You Can?
So the main reason, actually, is because I've watched this maybe twice, and not in a very long time. And I do remember it was good.
Yeah.
I've also gotten really into, crime in general. Not doing it.
Okay.
But, researching.
We've got a criminal on our hands, people.
Yeah, I was, I just need some cliff notes on how to do fraud.
Check fraud.
Check fraud. But, so I'd actually watched some interviews with Frank Abagnale Jr.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, he's just a fascinating character. And, I've been watching other stuff, with the mafia and jewelers and all this, jewel thieves and all this other stuff. So I've been well into crime anyway. And I've seen some stuff with Frank Abagnale, so it just kind of fit. So that's kind of the main reason I picked this film. I would have picked something more safe, but that would bore me. I've watched way too many Spielberg films, like the classics, too many times. They're on TV. I could pick Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park's an amazing movie, but I've seen that. And I did initially when you asked, what film, I said Jurassic Park. And then you were like, well, I've watched that a million times. I was like, yeah, I've watched that probably a billion times. Well, I don't even need to watch it.
I said that in a good way, but
Yeah, but I was just like, actually, now that you've said that, it just kind of makes me sick to even think about watching it again. I've watched it way too many times.
All right.
So I don't really want to review it. Maybe some other time if we do a dinosaur themed day, I'd definitely pick that. But,
yep, I've got that on the schedule for next year. Yeah. Dinosaur films.
Jesus, okay. Yeah.
Jurassic World Dominion. But there we
go. Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough.
So what happens in... I was going to say Jurassic Park. Catch Me If You Can. What happens?
So in this film, a dinosaur tries to commit check fraud. Yeah, but Sam Neill is hot on his case. Dr. Grant, yeah.
A Triceratops is trying to rip off the park with fake checks.
Yeah, he's dressing as a flight attendant, a doctor.
With his pilot's hat on.
Exactly. The horns give him away, though. Never away.
And his Pan Am Velociraptors next to him.
Sexy cheerleader Velociraptor stewardesses. Yeah, so anyway, I'm sorry. What the fuck are we talking about? I think if anybody goes in on this, they'd immediately click off. What the hell are these people talking about? Sexy dinosaurs? What was it about movies?
It's podcasting gold. What are you on about?
Yeah. So the film is about Leonardo DiCaprio plays Frank Abagnale Jr. He's a 16-year-old boy who basically goes on a kind of binge of fraud. So check fraud and identity fraud and many other kinds of fraud. Mainly because his father gets investigated by the IRS for, tax evasion and all this other stuff. And they've really squeezed him tight. So they had a very luxurious lifestyle, and now him and his family are dirt poor. So that's how the film starts. But, he still loves his family, and his parents love each other. But then his mother basically wants to split with his father. They get a divorce, and he's got to decide who to live with. And rather than decide, he just runs. He, runs for his life, gets on a train, fakes his ID, and he doesn't have any money, but he starts check fraud because his father gave him a checkbook. So, putting amounts like, I'll pay for the night at a hotel or whatever with $1,000. I'll pay you in a check. And he just comes up with this very elaborate system so he can just basically buy whatever the hell he likes and live how he wants, And then it gets more and more crazy as the film goes on. He pretends to be a pilot, fakes his ID, pretends to be a doctor, pretends to be a lawyer. At the same time, Tom Hanks is playing an FBI detective who is after him, chasing after him.
Carl Hand, really. So what did you make of this one then?
Yeah, I quite like it. Yeah, thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I really enjoyed the script. The end is really satisfying, even though it is a true story, but it's still very, very satisfying, the ending. Again, just like so many great Spielberg flourishes with the camera work. Tom Hanks and, DiCaprio are on top form, I think. They really bounce off each other really well when they are on screen together. Yeah, I really liked it. I'm not sure it's like classic Spielberg, but it's right up there, on the edges of classic Spielberg.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think it is a kind of unsung, kind of forgotten gem. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah.
But I do think it does get overshadowed by, his better works. But I still don't think it's, one you should, just miss or whatever.
Right, directing then. The pace of this film is like super quick, especially when like Frank is constantly learning more information about being a Pan Am pilot and getting better at check fraud, and there's some brilliant like fast cutting with close-up shots and reveals of like lots of models of Pan Am planes in the bathtub, and then loads of like checks on the floor, all perfectly placed. And a lot of scenes, certainly in the first half of the film, are all mostly long one-ers or composed for efficiency in mind. So each shot can tell you a lot of information and then move on quickly to the next scene. You never get lost. Like, one of my favorite shots is just after Frank has discovered sex and he goes into a bank and looking at like all the bank clerks are all girls, obviously. And the camera like whips across to each girl and then pans around them a little bit and then whips to the next girl, pans around them, and then another whip. And it's just a great like POV shot of Frank deciding on which girl to take advantage of and learn more about, check fraud.
You could say he was checking them out.
Oh, dear. It looks like a really like complex shot, but you know exactly what's going on, There's some really great composed shots in this film. I like how Spielberg makes a joke using his camera choices, especially during the first like courtroom scene. And throughout the film, Frank has learned, how to be a pilot, a doctor, and now a lawyer from watching films on TV in some degree, like, how they act. So he does the same thing in court and acts just like a lawyer from that film he was watching earlier. The shots are just on Frank and the judge, that's it. And then the judge gets annoyed and says, this is a preliminary hearing, and says, there is no defendant. There is no jury. It's just me. And in each line, there's a long pan across the room to reveal there's nobody there. And then when he gets really pissed off, it cuts to a big wide shot to reveal this empty courtroom. And it's just a really funny way to reveal that. And it just wouldn't work without those camera choices.
Yeah, definitely. So I liked when he basically makes the crucial decision to leave his family and to start off.
Yeah.
And he sees this guy's coat and he sees this guy come in and he's very confused, and then, we need you to come here, son. And then it's got like close-ups of each of his parents, and just so much going on. It's like darting around the room to all these faces. And they're trying to explain this to him, and you can just see he's confused, but you're confused and disoriented because everything's just moving around. And it's like, what the hell's going on? And then they're giving him the paper. It's back to the paper, back to them, back to him, back to... And then you just see him running down the street, but then it still intercuts with, you need to make a choice who you need to live with. And he's still running. You need to make a choice. Yeah. But like it's showing it in retrospect, he's still thinking about it as he's running down the street,
Yeah.
I quite like that. I thought that was a pretty good scene. When he gets he escapes the landing gear, where he escapes the plane. That was amazing. Where he goes through the toilet and he finds like all the screws are undone and he's just fucking ducked out of the.
And then Tom Hanks tries to go down the toilet.
Yeah.
And all his legs are just flailing. That was quite funny.
Yeah, that would have been crazy to shoot because they show it from below the plane. You know, there's shots from below the plane as he's coming out the landing gear and jumps in. I mean, my God, that must have been a dangerous shoot.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, when he gets caught outside of his mother's, I mean, that was also pretty good.
Oh yeah, that was quite emotional. That little
yeah, that was really emotional. And then, you know, when he's taken in the cop car and you just see his face on the mirror, the back mirror, whatever the hell it's called. Yeah.
I love the Miami airport sequence where Frank discovers that the FBI are using Brenda to create a trap for him. It's a trap. So Frank becomes a Pan Am pilot again, but personally hires loads of new stewardesses, mainly the prettiest ones, obviously. So Frank literally just rocks up to the airport with loads of Pan Am girls shielding him as he walks right to the gate, to the right gate. Then the cutting is really quick between Frank and Carl's men, and I think the best shot is when Carl is on the phone to one of his men in the airport saying they've seen him in a Pan Am uniform in a car outside, while the camera tracks round Carl on the phone, you know, slightly following Frank and the Pan Am girls in the background. Again, just a great fast-paced cutting. And the sequence ends with a great joke with the guy in the car holding a sign saying he's going to pick up Hand Ready. I feel like the more I was watching this film, it felt like Spielberg is doing his Martin Scorsese film, just without the R rating a little bit. It definitely does have Wolf of Wall Street vibes, but just without all the swearing and the shagging, really.
That was a brilliant scene.
Have you got a favorite shot or scene?
Yeah, I think that would probably be my favorite scene, the one you just said, with the Pan Am girls. Yeah, that was pretty damn good. Yeah. That was a genius, you know, idea, and it was just a well constructed scene. And as you said, it comes with the end of them rushing out to, you know, the car, and it's actually just the chauffeur. And it's just a great scripted moment. It's just it makes you feel pretty good.
For me, I've kind of gone with a lot of scenes recently, but in this there's so many short scenes, so many really good ones in isolation, but I've kind of gone with a shot actually for this one. Again, there's so many great shots as well, but there's one particular one where Spielberg kind of just makes this film feel like a really fast-paced caper. There's one great shot when Carl and his men try to find his latest address for the second time, and Carl's gun appears straight into shot and he walks through the door. Then another gun comes into shot from behind the first one. Then another gun comes right in front of the shot, coming from the other direction, and all you see is the agents holding the guns, you know, nothing else. It's just a great, like, choreographed, stylized shot of agents searching a room. Rather than using a simple wide shot, Spielberg goes out of his way to make like a simple scene look so cool. Just great gun choreography without firing anything. I just really love that. So, score for directing for me on Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, I really like it. Just the fast-paced nature of it. Greatly crafted shots. Again, so many great signature one-ers from Spielberg. You know, he just does efficiency in telling the story so well. So I might go 8.9, I think. How about you, sir?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'll go an 8.8.
Cool. Right, screenplay then. I like the way this film starts as this very, like, old game show. Basically, like, Would I Lie to You over here? They basically tell Frank Abagnale's whole life story, and the contestants have to ask questions to try and work out who the real guy is from a lineup of these three guys all dressed the same as, Pan Am pilots, I think. And it's just a fun way to get around the fact that this is a true story and they explain what happened to him, you know, in this quick way. Then they jump cut to Tom Hanks's character, Carl Hanready, an FBI agent, and he visits Frank in a French prison to take him back to America. Frank tries to escape.
One of the contestants asks him what was the name of the man that caught you or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, Carl.
Oh yeah,
handwriting,
jump
and
cuts.
it's like boom, and it jumps.
Yeah. He wants to take him back to America, but then like Frank tries to escape. Hanks does this smirk, and you get this sense that there's this mutual respect there between the two characters. And when eventually Carl catches Frank, then they do the whole many years later thing and go right from the start. The story is about how these two got this mutual respect for each other.
I think one of my favorite scenes in this, and to do with the writing more than it's even directed well, so I could have put this on directing as well. But the first time they meet, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
in the hotel room.
Yeah, in the hotel room. That's such a sweet scene where he just rushes in and like Abagnale comes out of the bathroom and he's holding his gun up to him, and you're like, oh shit, he's been caught. How does that work? Because is this how he got caught? This is pretty early on in the film. We've still got a while. And I love how he just spins it into like he's working with the Secret Service and they have the real Abagnale. You're too late. We just got him. And I love how he timed it because they set up that there's a blind guy at the swimming pool. At the hotel. There's a blind guy there. He's got a caretaker. And he's like, see, we're taking him into the car right now. And the guy is escorting the blind man into the back of a car. And he's like,
Yeah, because obviously in the scene before, Frank meets that blind guy. So, it's great writing there. And then when, DiCaprio turns away from him, he looks really nervous, just taking a moment to breathe. The scene is made more plausible because before, with Carl in the car with the other FBI agents, the other two that he's with, they discussed that they were both transferred to his department, and Carl has never met those two before. So Carl is assuming the same thing with Frank. That was really clever writing there. Plus the details are great too with Hanks acting. He looks really nervous, struggling to get his gun out, showing his badge to a maid backwards. So Spielberg has established that Carl will be susceptible to a confidence trick, because he's really nervous. Just great attention to detail there. I quite like the way Frank and Carl's relationship develops throughout the film, and the way each of their scenes are kind of spaced out, because Carl's first scene without, the flash forwards at the beginning is about 40 minutes into the film. The main focus is on Frank, really, at the start. But when you get into the final act, the final third of the film, each scene is with Frank and then a scene with Carl, and then near the end, their scenes are all intercut, during the same scene until they basically share the screen at the end. Throughout the film, you can tell Carl is learning from Frank's tricks and moves to get away each time. Then the scene in the printing factory in France, Carl bluffs to Frank saying if he steps outside, he'll get shot, and Frank just can't read him like before, and he believes him by making Carl swear on his daughter. But of course, Carl was lying, and there's mutual respect there. And because Carl realizes Frank is only running because that's all he knows, like himself, and all Carl knows is to catch this guy, and because it's just a kid running scared, when the French take him away, Carl is desperate to bring him back to the States. Yeah, so I kind of just like how Carl is kind of learning from Frank's conning tricks to actually catch Frank. I thought that was just quite clever how that's developed.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because he gets, as I said at the beginning, very easily tricked by him and always outsmarted. But yeah, he is learning, and I do like that in a sort of cat and mouse thing. So I like the scene where basically he's going over the pseudonym that he gave him as a Secret Service agent. I just love the detective work of his character, of Carl. And I like that scene where he's just like, because he said his name was Barry Allen, Detective Barry Allen.
The Flash!
Yeah, and then this guy, he's just doing it in a diner, and the waiter comes over, the, busboy or whatever, and he's like, oh, are you into The Flash or something? He starts talking about The Flash. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, that's the name of The Flash, the character from the comic book? Yeah, that's his real name. And he's like, oh, shit. So he's like, we must be looking for a kid, look for runaways. And because he phoned him up as well, to taunt him or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, the New York Knicks or some football team or something, some American football team.
New York Knicks, yeah.
Yeah, he must be from New York.
Basketball.
He must be a kid. And I just love how he sort of narrows it down more and more,
Yeah.
like where he is, what he's doing.
And I quite like it at the end when Carl meets Frank in prison and he gives him some Flash comic books. I thought that was quite a sweet moment as well.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
And in the last few scenes, they become like good friends, where Frank works for Carl in the FBI, trying to catch the new Czech fraudsters. But what's interesting is that Frank has every opportunity to escape now, and Carl knows it. And when Carl catches Frank again at the airport as pretending to be a Pan Am pilot, Carl's like, you can go if you want. I won't try and catch you, because Carl knows Frank has nothing to run for now because his father is dead. And Frank eventually comes back, and I just love the fact that even now Frank and Carl are still good friends, and that was just so satisfying to read at the end. Yeah,
I think that was really well written and done. Like, when he leaves, or he's like, listen, I'm not going to catch you, you're going to come back. And he's like, well, how do you know I'm going to be back Monday? It's like, look at me, look behind me, nobody's catching you. And then he just leaves. Yeah. And then I love how the next day is so much suspense on that last scene. He's looking at the clock. He's asking, the secretary, has he called in? He's starting the meeting. And then I love how you get this first-person shot of somebody running up the, and then you see his feet at the bottom and you think it's Frank. Opens the door, it's someone else. And then as he's doing another lesson of analysing checks, then, someone comes up over him. Yeah, someone comes over him. It's like, mind if I have a look? And it's Frank. That was really well done.
Yeah, what's great is the fact that Carl really wants him to come back as well.
Yeah.
After spending so much time and energy trying to catch this guy, he really wants him to work for him still.
I think they really connected also, like, their conversations over the phone and stuff like that. They talk about each other very personally, but, he's trying to catch him. But you can tell, like, they've almost become, do you know what I mean? Like, as you were saying, mutual respect and understanding.
I think one of my favourite relationships in this film is actually between Frank and his dad, played by Christopher Walken, yeah. It's definitely the emotional heart of the film, because as the film progresses, you're wondering what is his motivation for doing this. It just can't be that he's good at it. But you realise he's doing it for his dad and his mum. But his relationship between his dad especially is interesting because he looks up to his dad in a way, and he just wants to be like him, but better, to pay all the money back. But what's interesting about their conversations is that they're both kind of like lying to each other about what they're doing. But you get the sense they both know that they're lying to each other. It's really great acting as well. His dad makes no attempt to stop Frank because he's so good at the conning thing. But in their last conversation, his dad says the FBI have been asking about Frank, and Frank dares him to ask him to stop, but he can't because he knows he'll go to prison for a long time if he stops, and they'll catch him. And I guess he just doesn't want to live that, long enough to see that, and obviously he does die off screen. So it's just a really interesting relationship there, and definitely the emotional heart of the story. That's always kind of lingering there in the background. There's some cool lines in this. Your son held a teacher-parent conference yesterday and was planning a class field trip to a French bread factory in Trenton. Do you see the problem we have?
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Would you like a drink after takeoff? Milk? From Tom Hanks. Knock, knock. Who's there? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that's I think my favourite line in the film.
Yeah. Oh, really? Cool.
It's just a great sum up of his character. He's like, he's got no time for this shit. And they're both telling each other jokes and trying to... He's like, I've just got work to do. He's like, what was it? Would it loosen you guys up more if I told a joke? And I just love it. Go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
He even says that to his boss. I love they cut that as well. Because he gets chewed out by his boss and he goes, would you like to hear a joke? Like, knock, knock.
Yeah. Frank's mother to Carl, just tell me how much he owes and I'll pay you back. So far, it's about $1.3 million. And then his mum's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But I think my favourite line is from Frank and then one of the stewardesses. Marcy, did you drop this? Must have slipped right off your neck. No. cut to, yes, yes, yes. That was hilarious, I thought.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Cut to them making a mess on that table. So screenplay score for me, I think it's really satisfying at the end. Because sometimes with true stories, it kind of peters out a bit sometimes, but not with this one. It's a really satisfying end. With these two characters who are complete opposites. They really don't like each other at the start, and then they come to be great friends. It's just a great story, and one that I'm really glad that Spielberg told, really. And it comes together so well. So I might go the same, actually, 8.9 for screenplay. How about you, sir?
Actually, I'll go 9. I'll go a 9.
Acting, then.
Yeah.
I love the moment from Leo when he first gets on a plane as
Actually,
a deadhead pilot. And he's just blagging his way through it and looking for the special seat at the back of the cockpit. And then the stewardess just pulls the seat out. And when the plane takes off, he's just like, oh, shit, with his arms, against the wall. That was funny.
Yeah, I find that funny because he's been pretending to be a pilot for a while. He's graduated all these schools. He's done this, he's done that. It's all bullshit. That's his first time flying. I just love that reaction of, oh, my God.
Yeah, on this tiny seat with a tiny strap. I love the Goldfinger appearance in the film, but not the Sean Connery impression. The whole eyebrow thing, not great. Sorry, Leo, not impressed. I love the acting from Leo when he's pretending to be a doctor and he's called into the emergency room, and a kid has had a bicycle accident and there's blood everywhere and looks more and more uncomfortable. Asks his fellow doctors, like, "Do you concur? Do I concur?" And he puts the dressing on his mouth a few times. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And then there's a long push-in on the kid's bloody injury, and you see his face turn like he's about to throw up. But he doesn't turn into the lizard because he's called Dr. Connors.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, there's a lot of Spider-Man stuff out at the moment, so I could have a Spider-Man joke in.
Yeah, I know. You can't help it. So, it's everywhere.
Was that a dinosaur? Sorry, from the trailer. I love the first scene DiCaprio has with Martin Sheen, who plays Roger Strong, the father of Amy Adams' character, Brenda Strong, whom Frank is now engaged to. And Frank says he's going to take up being a lawyer again and not a doctor because obviously he hates blood. Frank says he studied at law at Berkeley, and Martin Sheen asks Frank questions about an old teacher there, then
that's brilliant.
About the guy's dog.
Yeah.
And Frank's is slow to answer and just says the dog is dead. And Martin Sheen's subtle acting is brilliant, trying to work out if this guy is too good to be true, for his daughter. But he hardly gives anything away. It's just brilliant stuff from Martin Sheen. While Leo looks uncomfortable and just smiles, I thought it was great stuff from Martin Sheen in that scene.
I like Christopher Walken in this. I thought he was great. As we were even saying, that their relationship is really good.
And did you lose this necklace?
Yeah. And I love how his speech makes it through the film many, many times. It's essentially at Martin Sheen's... where he asks him to do a prayer, and it's like the phrase he's heard the most from his dad, 2 mice fell into a bucket of cream, isn't it? One mouse, he drowned. The other mouse, he worked his little feet until he churned that cream into butter, and then he walked out, I am that second mouse.
With plenty of punctuation in there, too.
Yeah. And also changing to quiet tones, like being loud and then, I am that second mouse.
Yeah.
He does that a lot.
My favourite performance, though, is probably Leonardo DiCaprio. I think he's great in this. What's yours?
I might go like Christopher Walken, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, he's great. And obviously it's his film. He's in most of it. And Christopher Walken isn't in it very much. But, I just like his heart, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, it would either be him, Leonardo DiCaprio, or Tom Hanks. I mean, they're all good.
Okay, yeah. But certainly Walken brings certainly the emotional heart of the film, and he brings a kind of a gravitas as well to the whole picture. So score for acting for me, it's really good. I can't. I'm struggling to separate like the directing, the screenplay, and the acting. I think they're all on par with each other. They're all as good as each other. So I might just go 8.9 again. It's all really good, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just sitting on the fence, but I think they're just as good as each other.
I do think they are like all really great. Yeah, it's very, as you said, very hard to separate one from the other. Like they all just seem like they're together. They're all very much intertwined. I'll go 8.7.
Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for Catch Me If You Can. Please don't, by the way, as well. Catch Me If You Can gets a very, very respectable 53.2. Right, my pick then is Jaws. And the cameraman gets kneed in the face. My pick is Jaws. I found it so difficult to choose which Spielberg film to go with because there are so many to choose from. Like, I love all the Indiana Jones films. Again, Jurassic Park is great. I like a lot of his war films I really like. Saving Private Ryan. Munich is a really, really great film. It's just so many. I found it very difficult to choose, but ultimately I went with Jaws because I think it's the first one. Well, it's the first film that kind of created the term blockbuster film, because it literally broke the blockbusters. I mean, the block where you get the tickets, in the cinemas. So they ran, there was just streams of people trying to see this film at the time in 1977 or whenever it was. 75. Yeah, and I think it's just one of the first films, other than Duel, where he kind of showed his directional prowess in such difficult conditions as well. I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether this is true, but I'm pretty sure that I don't think Spielberg has shot such a long sequence on a boat since this film, because it was so hard to shoot it. Because Brucey, the animatronic shark, kept breaking all the time. Robert Shaw was pretty much drunk through the whole shoot and really didn't like Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper. They did not get on whatsoever. But of course, because they didn't get on well at all, makes for just a great dynamic in the film. So I think it was a hellish shoot, but to make something this good in such hellish conditions is quite remarkable. So I went with Jaws. So what happens in Jaws? Well, the first scene is kind of at night with all these kind of students in Amity Island. And this girl decides to go swimming naked, and her boyfriend, or a boy just trying to chase her, struggling to get his clothes off.
We've all been there.
And and of course, John Williams eats the girl with the music. Pretty much, because the shark didn't work at the time. And then we kind of get introduced to Roy Schneider's character, Chief Brody. He hasn't been in Amity that long. It's his first summer in Amity, and he hears about this shark attack of this girl, and they find just her hand. And the medical advisor says this is a shark attack. So he's about to close the beaches, but then the mayor of the town, Harry, says, no, you can't close the beaches. He managed to convince the medical officer that it could have been a boating accident. So then there's basically this battle between Brody and Harry to, save the summer. Brody wants to keep everyone safe, whereas Harry wants to keep Amity's economy alive. And then characters like Quint and Hooper arrive. And these two characters are really interesting because there's a point in the story where a group of fishermen think they've caught the shark, but Hooper and Quint don't believe they have caught the shark, just a shark. So people keep dying from these shark attacks from Brucey. So Chief Brody, Hooper, and Quint decide to go out and hunt down this shark and kill it for good. It's just a great classic monster film, great classic horror monster film. I love this film so much. And I don't really give a shit that the shark looks really fucking fake at some points, but I don't care. It still looks amazing and feels really, really good.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this film then?
Yeah, man, I thought it was great. It definitely earned its spot as a movie classic. I mean, it is a movie classic, isn't it? So
yeah,
and watching it again, I enjoyed it. I actually especially enjoyed the suspense of the whole film, but I really enjoyed the dynamic between the three main actors, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, and Roy Scheider, and their performances. A really tense chase scene, basically, them trying to find and destroy the shark at the last third of the film.
All right, directing then. I love how Spielberg uses loads of fake outs and fills the scene with so many things going on to distract Brody before the iconic dolly zoom shot in the first proper beach scene, that made dolly zoom shots popular to use. A guy is trying to keep control of his dog, cuts away to a large woman floating in the sea, and Brody sees a dark figure swimming towards her, just an old man. A girl screaming in the water, her boyfriend has her on his shoulders, lifting her out of the water. Brody is, trying to peer over a guy's shoulder, trying to watch the beach and ignoring what he's saying. His wife reassures him a bit. Then the guy's dog goes missing, and you're like, that's weird. Where could it be? Where could it be? Then you have John Williams' score with these great POV shots underwater getting closer and closer to a kid's leg and the cameraman probably getting kneed in the face. Then we get a few wide shots of the first attack, and shots of people on the beach, then the iconic dolly zoom shot on Brody. And you get a strong sense that the realization of what's happening is happening at different times for people. Like the suspense is still building in a way long after the attack. It's gone from, this shark attack to panic, and yet Spielberg still has time to put a few tight shots on the kid being eaten for lunch. Just really skilled editing, I think, in that, the second beach scene, but the first one in daylight, Then when you get to the second beach scene on the 4th of July, when Harry is stupidly encouraging everyone to get in the water, and the suspenseful shots are all fairly similar to the previous beach scene, with a lot of wide shots and underwater shots, POV underwater shots, and you even get glimpses of a fin in the water. But there's one big difference from the previous beach attack. There's no music. When we learn that it was just a kid with a fake fin, the iconic music starts and the real shark appears, and you get a closer look at what the shark looks like. But it's only a little quick flash,
Yeah, that was cool, because there's a guy in a little rowboat trying to tell these boys, get the hell off the beach, and this lady is screaming her head off, there is a real shark behind you. You just see this fin behind him as he's telling these kids off, throws his boat up and goes at him.
I kind of just like the progression through the film of you just see a little bit more of the shark throughout, kind of like what we talked about in Alien, in space films.
Yeah.
You just see a little bit of the alien until the end, Same here, The jump scare where the severed head appears in the hole in the abandoned boat always makes me jump.
Yeah.
And I really tried to prepare myself this time, even though I've seen it a million times, and I still felt the need to mentally prepare myself. But because Spielberg is so goddamn good, it it still feels like he's taking his sweet time to get to that moment. Yeah. With all the, long tracking shots going around the boat, showing the light trails in the mist, making it feel super creepy. Hooper seems to take an age to get to that hole. Then finally it happens, and I felt fine. It was okay. Just a mild scare when the head comes out.
Just a mild heart attack. Again,
the suspense building is brilliant. Did that scene make you jump or not?
Yeah, that made me jump. That did make me jump. Won't lie.
I think the only minor criticism I have of the direction is during the scene when Hooper goes into the shark cage and they photograph, real sharks for the most part. They get the scale right, but the shot after Bruce hits the cage from behind, they use a real shark whipping back around in front of the camera, and the shark does feel really small. only like 10 feet, if that. But the following shots using Bruce were very intense with the real like tight shots on that attack. Hooper probably should have gotten eaten, but poor Bruce, he can't get his big head through the door. Bless him.
I love the whole idea of tying, because that's how they track him, where they shoot him with the inflatable
barrels. Yeah.
Yeah, the barrels. I like the first time that they shot him. Like, they see him, first of all. You get your first full-on look at him when Brody is throwing Chum over the boat. And again, because there's always been a build-up to him showing up. And now, of music, John Williams. And he just, like, appears. It's like, and then I just love, and then obviously Brody very slowly backs down the camera, goes into the cabin with Quinn there. And then you get the very iconic, we're going to need a bigger boat. And then they see the fin, and then there's this whole chase for it. But I love how it's coming right at them. And Quint, he's like aiming the harpoon. Hooper, he's like trying to tie the rope, tie the knot, and he keeps getting it wrong. And it goes from him to, it's like, come on, hurry up. It's just the camera darting around from one character to the other, to the shark, to the... And he keeps getting the rope wrong, and he finally gets it right. Like, go! And then he shoots it, gets him in the fin.
Yeah, tie the barrel!
Tie the barrel! And, I mean, like, that's what Spielberg is obviously very good at, is just, like, building suspense, and like, oh god, they're not going to do it! And then, it happens, and it's just a huge relief. That was, like, a really great scene.
I still really like Quint's death scene when Bruce decides... I've had enough of this messing about. I'm starting to get really hungry. Bruce does like quite an awkward belly flop onto the boat and breaks the back of the boat. Probably doesn't have the strength anymore to fly himself, into the boat properly. Poor Bruce, probably an old fella now. In that moment, it does look a bit fake. But when Spielberg goes tighter in on Quint and Bruce, filling the frame, that still feels like really intense, and it hides the fakery a bit more. And when you see and hear the final crunch and Quint bursts out blood, that was a great moment. But I think, too many wide shots at the start of that scene, I think, because it does look a bit mechanical.
During most of the attacks... The consistent use of blood sprays, well, basically, the water turning red underneath them and then bubbling up. I always found that.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood in this
really
film.
effective. Yeah, it's a lot of blood. And I kind of forgot, like, I wouldn't say the film is necessarily like that gory, but that it takes you back of like, oh my God, there's a lot of blood coming out of this person.
Especially when, like, they blow up Bruce at the end. There's like shitloads of blood in that water.
Yeah, and little chunks of tuna and just everything.
As you see his fin like come in and out of the misty blood, that was a great moment. It kind of echoes his one of his first films, Duel, when the lorry goes over the cliff and the lorry comes in and out of the dust. That's a bit of a callback there.
Yeah. I heard the book that this film is based on, which obviously is called Jaws. That was one of the major changes they made from the book to the film, is the death of the shark. I think apparently in the book he just gets shot and then gets weak and then dies, and that's about it. So he just has this kind of he dies like, if you just shot a shark. But they invented the whole pressurized gas. I love how they make mention of that before when Brody when Brody almost hits one of the bloody canisters, like they flop around the deck, and he's like, for the love of God, man, this is pressurized air, it'll go up. And then I love that, smile, you son of a bitch, blows him sky high. That's a great way to kill that thing.
Yeah, brilliantly placed that, because it's basically the first scene in the Orca, and you kind of forget about it until the end. When then he shoots him. So it's greatly placed foreshadowing there, I thought. Have you got a favourite shot then, or scene?
I would say my favourite scene, I think, is actually them, as I said, shooting I was going to say dinosaur, but it was a shark. Yeah, shark. Shooting the...
Well, weren't they around during the dinosaur era?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I think so. Perfect killing machine. Hasn't really changed its design in millions and millions of years. That would be cool, actually. Should they do, like, Jaws versus Jurassic Park? You just have an army of sharks attack Jurassic Park. I don't know.
Sharknado attacks Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Although all the T-Rexes would have to somehow jump into the water, right? Swim, because otherwise it just wouldn't work. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
I don't know.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So yeah, no, I would say my favourite scene is...
shot.
Yeah, my favourite scene, or / shot, or whatever, is what you were talking about of... what we were talking about of the first time they shoot the yellow barrels onto the shark. I just love the... I love the suspense of that moment. I've just... so that's my favourite scene. My favourite shot... It might be the dolly zoom. I know that's like, whatever, it's been done. But,
classic.
Yeah, but it is a classic. It's like what this film is known for. You see that scene, you know.
It's Jaws.
It's Jaws. And if you see it in another film, a dolly zoom, you're like, hey, that's from Jaws.
You touched on it a little bit, but my favourite shot is actually one of my favourite shots of all time as well. Is when Brody is like just chucking chum into the ocean, and it's a very simple close-up on Brody with just ocean in the background, and he's saying, slow ahead, I can go slow ahead, come down here and chum in some of this shit. And Bruce just takes a nice quiet nibble at some of the appetizers. And it's just such a great moment because you don't expect it at all, and to see the shark in full view with no suspense at all. It's just such an unexpected moment and works really, really well because you're expecting another big drawn out suspense sequence when you expect to see the shark in full view for the first time, like the previous suspense scene that comes to nothing. Plus, the reaction shot where Brody stands up really quick is amazing. Of course, there's one of the most iconic lines in cinema history, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah. I think one of the few things I know about that line is he improvised that. That's like, trivia 101 on Jaws. He just made that up.
So, score bars, what are you going for directing?
I'll give it an 8.9, I think. Yeah.
Feel like you want to go up into the nines?
Yeah. Okay, 9.1. There we go.
Yes, it worked.
Your hypnotic powers of persuasion.
Yeah.
It was just me looking into those dark black eyes of yours.
Yeah.
Black like a doll's eyes.
It turned white. Yeah. Fuck me, there are so many great lines.
There are some amazing lines. I think my favourite lines when we're going on scripts are from Quint, from the shark.
Oh yeah,
the shark guy. He has like the best lines.
So my directing score, I'm going to go pretty high, and I think it's just quite remarkable that this is one of Spielberg's first films, and yet it was such a hellish experience, and yet the outcome is so fucking good still.
Do you know they've got a play on the West End about the about the making of it? Yeah,
I really want to see that.
Is it called something like The Shark Doesn't Work or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to go like 9.5, I think.
Yeah, it's called The Shark is Broken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right, screenplay then. I like how the film sets up the character dynamics right from the start between Brody and Harry, the mayor of the town. Brody has only been the chief of police for less than a year. This is his first summer. And his chief medical person has said that it looks like a shark attack and he's trying to close the beaches. Then moments later, Harry is talking to Brody, essentially saying that if you close the beaches, people won't come to the town and spend their money. Also, Harry has persuaded the medical person that the girl that died in the first scene could have been caused by a fishing boat. And Harry says, Martin, it's all psychological. You yell barracuda, and they all say, huh, what? You yell shark, and you've got a panic on your hands on the 4th of July. So the battle lines have been drawn where Brody is still convinced that there's a shark out there and is trying to protect the people while Harry is trying to protect Amity's economy. I can't say that word, economy.
You can't say that word.
Amity's money, there you go.
There we go. You're like Porky Pig. Amity's economy. Money. That's all, folks. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Then Brody and Hooper's last plea to Harry to close the beaches, you really just want to shake some sense into Harry, and it does make you feel quite angry in that scene. It's just like, you're dealing with people's lives here.
Yeah.
Bruce is really, really hungry. Yeah. When someone's graffitied a shark fin on the billboard, did that scene make you pissed off?
Yeah, no, it made me want to scissor kick him straight in the face. Or, literally just drag him into the ocean, just like throw him off to the open mouth of Jaws, or the open jaws of Jaws. That's what I should have said. But no, that was very infuriating. It's like he's still trying to play off that the shark that they caught was the shark.
Yeah.
Even in the scene before, like, they could have sussed it out right there and then and showed the town. Because Hopper is like, we need to cut it open, because then we can see.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're not cutting that damn thing open. He's like, we're not going to have the mother see her, like, little son, all over the deck. I don't think that's...
all over the
deck. I don't think that's what he's concerned about. It's just, he's afraid that it's not the shark, and it really isn't. But, it's like, he wants it to be, and doesn't,
Yeah.
He is a dick, and he is definitely responsible. And when the second attack happens, I do love, like, the change in his character of just very speechless. And all this time, he's just been giving such huge pushback from Brody, and Brody is like, you can never win in an argument with him. To Brody is just telling him how it is. It's like the dynamic changes.
We've got to kill the shark.
We got to kill the shark. You're closing the damn beaches, and you are paying that guy $10,000 to find the shark.
He just kind of takes control.
Yeah, he takes
from
control.
Harry.
And it really takes the wind out of that wanker, the mayor, because it's like, I like that scene. I like that sort of development of that character.
I like how the emotional stakes go up a notch when they think they've caught the right shark and everyone is sure they've caught the right shark. But the only characters that doubt that are Quint giggling away in the boat, lurking in the background, and Hooper, who is measuring the mouth's radius, and Hooper is trying to convince Brody that it might not be the right shark. But then Mrs. Kittner arrives and slaps Brody in the face, and it's like everyone has just forgotten that her child died, while everyone is celebrating catching a shark, the wrong one at that. For Brody, he's like, screw Harry, as you said. He has to be sure that they get the right shark. Brody can't have any more blood on his hands. This is the last straw. He can't have any more dead kids, get dead people on his hands, as chief of police. So I just like that little scene of just ramping up the emotional stakes. I quite like how the scenes in the Orca are structured. At first, you think it's a matter of time until they hunt down Bruce, because you don't realise how strong and powerful he is yet. Then after the Indianapolis scene, the pace of the action goes up a notch. You see Bruce a lot more. They attach 3 barrels on him, but nothing's stopping Bruce. You go from the Orca chasing Bruce to Bruce chasing the Orca. And Bruce becomes more and more powerful for them. And it's like Bruce is playing with his food before eating them, kind of thing. But when the engine breaks down, Quint is all out of options and is forced to go with Hooper's plan of going in the shark cage, which Quint laughed off at the start before they set off. But now, because they've been through so much, it's kill or be killed. It's like a kill or be killed showdown,
Yeah. No, I love that as well, because basically Quint, he's done everything now. He's literally tried everything. He's meant to be the expert, and the shark has bested him. And I like that conversation with, he just picks up the tranquilizer he has.
Yeah.
So again, all this scientific stuff and medical stuff, he's never been interested in all this stuff. Prefers guns and barrels and like offensive weapons, and all of that's failed. And he just goes to him like, do you reckon you can pierce him with that? Will that slow it down? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, it should slow it down. It's like, can you pierce its hide with this? It's like, no, But I like how he's opening to the idea of asking for help, because he didn't even want them on his boat.
Yeah.
He was very vocal that they leave him alone and just let him get on with it.
Yeah, I just like how all the Orca stuff is structured. Like, they're all pretty confident of killing Bruce, but as the story goes on the boat, Bruce becomes more and more powerful, and Quint is like, I've never seen a shark like this. I know it's very unrealistic that a shark can pull down 3 barrels, but it wouldn't make a very good film if this film was really realistic. So, But yeah, I just like how that's structured. There are so many really cool lines in this. Right at the start, I can swim, I just can't walk or undress myself. That's some bad hat, Harry.
Oh yeah, that was good, because that's the guy who had the who he thought was the shark as well. Yeah, he had the black swimming cap.
This shark will swallow you whole. A little shaken, a little tenderizing. Down you go. Can you tell me if there's a good restaurant or hotel on the island? Yeah, you walk straight ahead. They're all gonna die. A tiger shark? Oh, what? You got any you like?
Okay, I'll just go over because, I do have a few, with the chum and the, we're going to need a bigger boat and, all the kind of classics, where she slapped him, you just went over that. My son died because of you, and all this other stuff. There are very good lines throughout the thing. My favorite, though, and I'm just going to do part of it because it's a huge speech. But it's when, but it's, I'm just going to do the part that I really like.
The Indianapolis?
Yeah, the USS Indianapolis. So they get really, really drunk and are singing and dancing and trying to get on, even though there's, some...
Okay, yeah.
They're talking about, scars that they had.
Yeah.
And he says, what was that? And he said, I used to have a tattoo there. He goes, what was it, a tattoo of your mother or something? And then he stops laughing, like it was all happy and stuff, but it's like, no, it was a tattoo of the USS Indianapolis. It's like, you were on the Indianapolis? He's like, what happened, Brody is, because he's got no idea. And, they tell, he goes through the story of how it was, it was a real ship. It did really happen. It was a real ship on a secret mission in the Pacific, World War II, got sunk by a Japanese submarine. And a lot of the people were basically swimming out in the Pacific Ocean for days, and a lot of people got eaten by sharks, That was pretty horrible. And he was part of that. And I like how the part of his giant speech, the description of a shark, is like he goes, the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites you, and those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red, and spite of all the pudding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. It's like, that's just so fucking cool.
Yeah, well, no, pretty horrible.
It's pretty horrible. It's pretty horrible, but it's haunting. It's haunting. Yeah. Like, he has seen many people die. He's seen them get turned to ribbons by a shark,
I had that scene under acting. I was listening to another podcast the other day about whether it's best to show something that's happened previously in the story in a flashback or just let the character just explain it and talk about it. And most people would say it's better and more impactful if you show a flashback scene. But I don't think it's the case in this film. When Quint is talking about the Indianapolis, the atmosphere Robert Shaw creates when he's talking about the sharks, in the water is incredible. You could hear a pin drop on that boat. Shaw becomes a lot quieter and even becomes slightly emotional towards the end, which you would not expect whatsoever following this character in this film. And if we go into a flashback, it would feel more detached from the rest of the film. You need Hooper and Brody just staring at him, doing nothing to create this atmosphere, and it's just it is a long scene, but it didn't feel long at all because Robert Shaw's acting is so captivating.
Yeah. The other problem I would have of like unnecessary flashbacks is specifically that flashback. It's like, if you would, that story is he's talking about how hundreds of guys got eaten by sharks. We know in the film that people have been eaten by sharks. You've had two characters that get... You know what being eaten by a shark is, and then later another person's going to get eaten by a shark. I think it's better that he explains it because he adds a poetic flair to what a shark attack is and what being eaten... It's a badass line. I think you deprive people of a great, explanation and, and a piece of acting rather than, you just... And one thing I hate in films, and I've seen this way too many times in TV shows and film, and I think it's just to justify the budget or just because they can, but when you have somebody say something, like a story, and then it shows you the flashback, and then it goes back to you telling them telling it, it's like, why do you need to do
you don't
both?
Need both.
You don't need both. Can people stop doing this? Really annoys me. If somebody tells me a story about what happened to them, I don't need to see it. I've been told it.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at it, don't finish it off, That drives me crazy anyway, but either don't say what happened in your past and then show it through flashback, or just say it and then don't show it. Like, I just don't like both. It just feels a bit redundant,
Again, going back to lines, there's so many. I'm not drunk enough to go on that boat. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. I can't do that. Yes, you can. It's only an island if you look at it from the water. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. if if you open the beaches on the 4th of July, you're ringing the dinner bell, for Christ's sake. I think I'm familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you in the ass. That's it. Goodbye. I'm not wasting my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. Aye, aye, sir. Arr, Jim boy. Arr. I won't have to take this abuse much longer. Quint smashes the radio and says, "Excuse me, Chief." That was quite funny. But I think my favourite line, I mean, of course, my favourite line is always going to be, "You're going to need a bigger boat." I think that's probably everyone's favourite line, but one that definitely made me laugh out loud was when they kind of first see Bruce for the first time, and Hooper is trying to take a picture of the shark and tries to get Brody on the parapet to get some scale, and he's like, "I need something up there in the foreground to give it some scale. Foreground my ass," and then just walks off. And that was great. So that was kind of just a funny one I picked out of so many, really. On a different day, I could have picked a different one. Yeah. So score bias for screenplay, what are you going for?
Yeah, man, the screenplay's, it's tons of fun. 3 tons of fun. 25-footer.
Catch Me If You Can, you gave a 9.
I gave it a 9. All right. Yeah, okay, I'll give this a 9 as well then.
I kind of love how simple this script is, and yet it's really quite clever with the dynamics between Harry and Brody, and there's so many great lines as well, iconic lines. So I'll go like a 9.2, I think. Right, acting then. I'm not sure you can get a better character introduction than Quint, played by Robert Shaw, where everyone in the town hall is meeting and talking about what they're going to do about the shark. Then it just breaks down into everyone arguing. Then suddenly you hear this high-pitched noise, and all you see is a hand scraping his fingernails down a blackboard. Then cut to Robert Shaw, and he seems so different from everyone else, like he's from a different time. He has this very gruff, old-fashioned persona about him. Just a great character and a great character introduction. I hate it when that type of high-pitched noise. It's just
yeah, it's pretty horrible
in your ears.
Yeah. I think my worst is polystyrene.
Oh, really?
Stand up.
I love the little moment from Roy Schneider and his son, the scene after he gets slapped by the grieving Mrs. Kittner. And Roy is looking really depressed, and his son is mimicking all his movements. And when Roy notices his son copying him, he turns his face brilliantly, slowly. He's trying to scare him by just playing with him, and it's just a nice, charming moment to show he really loves his family, and it just gives Brody something to lose going up against the shark. But then when Hooper arrives for dinner, he's still looking quite depressed and just ignores Hooper and his wife talking about the shark. Well, talking about sharks. Just looking into space. And it's funny when Brody pours Hooper's wine in a tall glass and Hooper says, "Are you going to let that breathe?" And Roy Schneider doesn't change his expression one bit and just has this tired, cold smile on his face like, "I don't give a fuck. I just want to kill this shark and drink."
Yeah. And I'm all out of drink.
I love the first suspense scene on the Orca where Quint's fishing line begins to go tick, 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 tick. The shots are great, and there's a brilliant, subtle score there from John Williams as well. But it's all from Robert Shaw's acting. His eyes just look at the wire without even moving his face. And he keeps his eyes on the wire the whole time while he's strapping himself into this chair. And it comes to nothing, but it's just a great moment from Quint and just great suspense building. And Hooper, at the end of the scene, is just pulling faces at him behind his back.
Yeah, that was great.
That was quite funny.
Yeah, I liked Hooper. I liked
Richard Dreyfuss,
and I just liked how irritable he could get, and just how I don't know. It's he gets really passionate and very sort of angry at the situation he's in. I liked when he's they have him examining what's left of the body, and he's like this was obviously a shark attack, yeah. And I just love how he's sweating. He's very uncomfortable looking at all this stuff. And getting more and more frustrated that they just let the beach open. I love his acting of just how infuriated he is, but trying to keep it back. And then obviously him and Quint, and just how much they hate each other. They fucking hate each other. And
in real life.
in real life. But I think that's great because you can feel the hate, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like acting. You can really feel the dislike.
I would be surprised if Spielberg was like, "Do you want another drink, Robert? Here you go. Here's some more drink."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really improves the scene. I think it's also it's quite nice when they get on when they're getting really drunk, because it's like they're getting on begrudgingly. Yeah. And I should have said this in lines, but I like when they're comparing battle scars, you know, from what they've had with, you know, sharks and different animals. Oh, I like where so I like where they're talking about their injured legs. I had a stingray through the leg. I had this through the leg. And he goes like, "I'll drink to your if you want to drink to your leg." And Hooper's like, "I'll drink to your leg." You know, he's like, "Well, drink to each other's legs."
I love that moment as well from Roy Schneider. He doesn't say anything. He just lifts up his shirt and there's a massive scar down his belly. He's probably got the biggest one, you know.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say anything.
He's humble. Yeah, he's way too humble for that.
So, favourite performance, Boaz?
Yeah. Actually, oh man, this is gonna be difficult. Like I like all three of them. I think they're all, you know, they all do a phenomenal job. And it's very hard to pick which one's my favourite. Like I like Hooper, how he gets quite annoyed and especially
Hooper.
Yeah. You know, if we're talking about the actors, Richard Dreyfuss. I like Richard Dreyfuss and how he gets annoyed. I like Martin. I like Roy Scheider and
Roy Schneider.
Shut the hell up. He prefers cider. Yeah, I know him. He's a friend. But anyway, so Roy Schneider. I like his. You know, he's a stoic sort of hero, and he's going through a lot, and he does a very good job. And Robert Shaw, he's fucking crazy. Like his character is just nuts, and he's really amusing to see. So I don't know. It's really hard to pick one.
Well, my favourite is Robert Shaw as Quinn. Just a great character. Just a great, like, crazy, old-fashioned character.
I think he's an excellent character, and I also think he has the best lines, in my opinion. Like, he has just the best lines. So that might be my pick. But I think, like, acting chops, they're all very equal. So I think it's quite hard. But yeah, maybe I'll go with you there. I'll go Robert Shaw.
Score, Boaz, what are you going for acting?
I think I'll go 9.3.
Nice. For a trio of actors in a final scene, I'm not sure you can beat that, really. When you've just got three actors for pretty much 1/3 or even half of your film, you know, towards the end. So it's just great stuff.
One isn't being, like, put in the background, and they've all got something to do, got something to say.
No one's really dominating either.
Yeah, no one is too dominant. So I think that's just... They work off well against each other.
Yeah, I think I'll go 9.2, I think. Right, let's add up the scores then for Jaws. Jaws gets 55.3. So that's pretty high. We have been very generous. So Jaws comes in at third.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I'm just so pleased that neither of us were too bothered that the shark looks really fake. So.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves to be that high. It's such a classic film.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that it's not just the directing that makes this film amazing. The script is awesome. The acting is awesome too. Just so good in those areas as well. So it's a worthy winner in my eyes. Next week, as we are returning to The Matrix in The Matrix Resurrections with added John Wick, apparently.
Yes.
According to Keanu Reeves' hairstyle.
Yeah.
Because I think he wasn't allowed to cut it because he was filming John Wick 4 at the same time.
At the exact same time.
So we are doing Keanu Reeves films for next week. So that's very exciting.
I think it would be the greatest plot twist if it turns out they are connected. They are just... He's literally the same series.
All right, Boaz, you have been Jaws-tastic. Huh. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I'll catch you some other time.
That's really bad.
Yeah, that was fucking awful.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off. Thank you.